So during the next few sections, we're going to be building our very own Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. We're going to start out with just a completely blank worksheet, and we're going to build up a monthly budget spreadsheet. We're going to start out just simple, take it step by step. We're going to do things like enter labels, like our column and our row labels. We're going to enter some numeric values in there representing our dollar amounts, our currency values, the hard-earned money that we're spending each and every month on all of our bills. We'll talk about building calculations so we get things like totals for each month or each bill. We'll talk about some other types of calculations as well. And we're going to do some formatting. We're going to make it look super awesome. But we're going to start from complete scratch. So our first step, we've got to open up a new Excel document and we're going to start to put some labels or headers into our spreadsheet. So here we go. So I'm back into the Excel interface and I'm looking at the new section of the Backstage view or of the File tab. So now inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and grab Blank Workbook and I'll give that a double click. All right, here we are. We've done this once before. We've opened up a new blank Excel document and here we are. Now, I'm on Office 365. I subscribe to the monthly subscription through Microsoft to get access to the Office applications, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and so on. Now, occasionally, and I just really want to give you a heads up, if you're also a part of the Office 365 subscription, whether you get that through a personal edition or something through work, Microsoft likes to push out updates. Now, as of this recording, it is February of 2019. This is our current release of Microsoft Excel. Now, when you open it up, your interface might look a little bit different because Microsoft pushes out updates. So nothing big. I've been teaching Excel for years now, and I teach it virtually exactly the same way. I've been teaching ever since the early editions of Microsoft Excel. 2000, back in 95. Excel's been Excel for years. Of course, Microsoft has introduced new features and whatnot, and we'll get into those new features. And I want to talk about all the bells and whistles that Microsoft adds to additional versions, but it's still underlying, it's still Excel. Now, once again, if you are on the Office 365, you may occasionally, when you first launch up Excel, you may get a yellow bar at the top of your screen saying, hey, Microsoft's got some updates ready for you. Do you want to go ahead and update? And they'll give you a button right there to build update. Okay, I'm not getting it right now, and we may see it at some point within this course as I close and I reopen Excel, and Microsoft may be pushing out updates, but just keep an eye on that inside of your own interface. Updates are great. Microsoft is fixing things, creating new features for you. It's huge. So, all right, here we are. So typically we start out inside of cell A1 within our new worksheet, and there inside of A1, what better place to put a title? So I'm going to go ahead and put a title here. I'll call this monthly budget. This is going to be our monthly budget spreadsheet. And again, I'm just inside of column A, row 1, type that value in. I'm going to hit my enter key on my keyboard. That'll hop me out of that cell. All right, so there's my title. We'll worry about making that fancy looking colors and bold and all that stuff. We'll do that later on. For now, we're just going to put some labels in there and start to build the basic structure of our spreadsheet. So I'm going to drop down into cell A3 and I'm going to create a column here that's going to act as the labels for all of the bills that I have for each of the months. So first thing I'm going to put in here is just a nice header. We'll just call it bills. I'm going to hit my enter key to drop down a cell again. And now I'm going to create a list, nice little column here of various bills that I have for each month. Now, you can copy me exactly if you like to. Hopefully you're following along with me, right? You can copy the exact same stuff if you like. But I want to encourage you. One of the best ways to learn something new is not only participate in a course like this and to learn, but to put it to practice. So the sooner that you can start to put this into your own real world scenarios, the better off you're going to be. Okay, so think about what bills do you have, right? So here, I'm just going to make some stuff up. I'm going to say we got rent, we got phone, we got credit cards, credit, make sure I spell that right, credit cards. Hit my enter key, drop down again. Let's say we got food, and let's do one more here. I'm going to say candy. Gotta have candy, right? Each and every month you got your bill for your candy. All right, I'm going to hit my enter key. I'll drop down. Now, that's good. I'm going to call it good right there. Of course, I've got more inside of there. Maybe we want to put car in there. You got electricity. You got gas. You got garbage and water. You got this, that, and the other thing, right? Whatever bills you have, right? Let's go ahead and create a list there. And eventually, we're going to start to put in the values for each of the months that we're spending on these various bills. Start to make you feel kind of bad where all your money's going, right? Hopefully it's going to candy though, right? All right, down below that, again, I'm just going to stop it there. I'm going to put in a total. Eventually, we're going to have a row here, right here, that's going to give us some totals for the various months that we'll have for each of our bills. All right, so these are our row headers, our row labels. Let's go ahead and continue building the structure. I'm going to jump up into cell B3. I'm just clicking up there, and I'm going to put some labels up here for each of the months. So as of recording right now, it is February of 2019, but I'm going to go ahead and start this out at January. So I'm just going to type in Jan. If you want to type out January, feel free. You can do that as well. I have a couple of Achilles heels of my own as far as spelling is concerned. My spelling is horrible. My kids come home from school and ask me how to spell something. I open up Word, Microsoft Word, and I type it in there. Spell checker, right? It's awesome. So January, February, right? I can never remember how to spell those two. So I'm just going to abbreviate. I'll say Jan. I'm going to hit my tab key just to hop over to the right one cell. I'll type in Feb, tab, and I'll type in March. I'm going to hit tab key one more time. I'm going to stop right there for the months and keep it really simple. If you'd like, you can continue going, right? The more practice you get, the better. You can go to April, May, June, July. You can do whatever you want to inside of there. You can start at whatever month you want. Again, up to you. But I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to put another total label. Remember, we've got this one. We got this guy down here. Let's hit my enter key, hop out of there. We got that one right there because eventually we're going to have some a row total here for each column. But then I'm going to have one here because I want to do totals for each of the bills as well. So this right here, this is kind of the basic structure of a spreadsheet. You've got row labels, in this case bills. You got column labels representing some type of date. Now, there's our basic structure, our labels, and these are just text values. So if you're not following along with me step by step right now, go ahead and pause the video, start to create the basic structure, the labels of your Excel monthly budget. So get that part done, pause the video if you need to. Once you're done, jump back in. Our next lecture, we're going to start to talk about entering numeric values and putting some currency amounts inside of these months for these bills. So get that done. We'll jump into the next section. So our next step in creating this Excel spreadsheet is to enter some numeric values, some currency amounts for the amounts that we're spending for each bill across all the months. So in the prior video, we took a look at entering alpha values or text values, right? We got those as our labels. Now here inside of this section, in my case, from cell B4, right below January, inside rent, from B4 down to D8, I want to put my dollar amounts inside of there. Okay. So I'm going to jump up into cell B4, and I'm going to make some stuff up here. Feel free, you can copy exactly what I got, or if you're putting your own bills in there, you're creating your own monthly budget, feel free to put your own amounts, whatever you like to do. The quicker you can put it into real world practice, the better off, right? All right, so inside of B4, I'm going to say 1,000. I'll hit my enter key, drop me down into January for phone. And for phone, let's say it's $100. Credit cards, let's say it's $150. Food, gotta have food, right? $300. Candy, let's say candy is going to be $100 each month. All right. Now I'm going to jump up. I'm just using my arrow keys here to move me around within this spreadsheet. I'm going to jump up into C4. Now I'm back to rent, but now for the month of February. Let's say rent doesn't change, so it's now 1,000. I'm going to drop down a cell, hit my enter key. Phone, maybe this month I went over on data, so I got 125. Credit cards, pay those off a little faster. Let's say 200. Food, maybe food went down. It is a 275. Candy, $100. All right, back up. Now I'm inside of March. Okay, as of recording right now, it is February of 2019, but I'm going to fill this thing out completely, right? Just to give us some more data to work with. So let's say rent, still 1,000. 1, 2, 3. Phone went back down to 100. Credit cards back to, let's say, let's make this something different. 175. Food went to 350. Candy went up. Gotta have a candy, man. Gotta have a candy. 125. All right, that's looking pretty good. So now we've got our labels, right? All these guys right here are labels for our spreadsheet. And we've got our dollar amounts, our currency values representing the amount that we're spending for each bill for each of these months. Now, there's something I want to point out here. This is something small, but it's actually pretty big. Okay? There's a difference between the text values, these guys that we entered in, and the numeric values that we just input. Like I said, it's going to be actually something kind of small, but it can make a big impact inside of your spreadsheet and inside your work, especially when you start getting into calculations. All right, so take a look at them. Compare these labels right here with the dollar amounts, the numeric values that you just input below those headers. Do you see it? There's something different about those two. I know one's numeric and one's text, one's alpha, but there's even something else different between the two, right? Well, look at the months. The months, these are left aligned. So it deals with their formatting. By default, text values come in left aligned on the cell. You see it? Numeric values, on the other hand, come in right aligned. These are all on the right-hand side of the cell, right? Look at all those. I could draw arrows. All right? Left aligned for text, right aligned for numbers. Now, why does this happen? And this happens not just in Excel. It's not specific to Excel, but this happens in lots of different applications, a majority of them, in fact. Well, it happens for a couple of reasons. One, it's cleaner. You'll see the difference between the two. I know that this is text because it's left aligned. This is numeric because it's right aligned. That's its default behavior. If we start introducing decimal places inside of our numeric values, those decimals will be nice and aligned. Let me show you. Let's say I get into B4. We got rent there for 1,000. I'm going to double click inside of that cell and I'm going to say 0.55. Our rent is $1,000, 55 cents. I don't know where that 55 cents is going to, but there it is. I'm going to hit my enter key. I'm going to drop down the phone and we'll say this is $100.25. Hit my enter key. Now, because the numbers are right aligned, that decimal is nice and clean, right? Nice line going down through our numeric values. Nice and clean. If they were left aligned, that would be all over the place. Let me just grab those two cells. I'm going to go to my Home tab. Underneath my Home tab, I've got an alignment section, and I'm going to tell them to be left aligned. And you're going to see our decimal place kind of go like this, kind of do the wave. So let me hit the left align button there. And there's our decimals, still numeric, right? But if we look at that now, that decimal is no longer straight. It's no longer clean. If I had more decimals, that thing could be doing the wave all the way down, right? Just want to look very clean. So let me undo that. I'm going to Control Z on my keyboard. Love that undo. Right there, Control Z, Z like zebra. All right, I don't want the decimal, so I'm going to keep hitting Control Z. Let's get back to just 1,000 and 100. All right, so there's one reason. Okay, it's cleaner. It distinguishes itself between that data and the data below. Looks nice and clean. Okay. Now, if you ever import data or copy paste data from some other system, whatever it is, into an Excel document, and you see your numeric values are actually left aligned, so they look like this, all over here on the left-hand side, typically you will then get a little green, let's change my color here, let's say green. you get a little green kind of triangle looking thing inside the corner of that cell. And you'll get that across all of them. Okay? If you ever see that, or if you've ever seen that, some of you maybe seen that before, that means Excel is looking at that and saying, hey, something's wrong. There's something wrong with those values. And typically, when you see your numbers left aligned, Excel is treating those values as text. They're not being treated as numbers. So what can you do? Well, if that happens to you, you can click into one of those cells. You get that little triangle in the corner. You get a little box. And when you click the box, it'll come up with some options. And one of them will be convert to numbers. And you do it right there. And it'll right align them, put them back to where they belong, and you're good to go. All right. So I just want to point that out. Again, it's something small, just a difference between how they're aligned, but it can be a much larger impact. Decimals, nice and aligned, right? We don't want that wave going through our document. And it can potentially screw up some formulas. When you're trying to do mathematical type operators, we don't want to work with text. We want to work with numbers. All right. And if it ever happens to you, it's a quick fix. You can click on the little box that shows up next to that green triangle. I don't have it on my screen right now, but maybe we'll see it at some point, and you can just convert it to number. All right. So get these in there. Really simple. Got our labels, got our numbers in there. We'll call it good. Get those in there. Then we'll jump to the next lecture, and we'll start to expand some more inside of this Excel spreadsheet. So we've talked about two different types of data that you can input into an Excel document. There's actually a few more. And I want to talk just a little bit about one of the other types of data that you're going to be inputting into an Excel spreadsheet. We've talked about alpha characters. That's our labels, right? Bills. We got our months along the top. We've talked about numeric values. All of these dollar amounts here eventually be formatted as currency that we've now input into our Excel spreadsheet. Now, another type of data that you're going to be working with inside of Excel are dates. So let's talk a little bit about dates. We've got some months. I mean, that's a portion of a date, right? That's a date value, but it's not a complete date, right? Dates, they typically contain three different aspects or three different elements that make up the date. You've got the day of the month, you got the month, and you got the year. So we really got those three pieces. Now, depending on what region you live in, your dates may be formatted a little bit differently. Do you do day first? Do you do month first? What does your years look like? Right? There's lots of different ways to be able to format dates, but dates typically contain those three pieces of information. Now, let's say for our months here, maybe I'm going to be using this one spreadsheet for multiple years, right? We got 2019, at least as of recording this video. Maybe you're going to go into 2019, 2020, right? Or 2021, or maybe I'm going to do a previous year with 2018 or whatever it might be, right? So I want to denote which year this month belongs to. So I'm going to go up into my January, which is B3, and I'm just going to double click into that cell. Double click, enters into that cell. I can now edit it. So I'm going to say January hyphen 2016. That's it right there. I'm going to hit my tab key, hop out of that cell. Ooh, wait a minute. Two things just happened there. Do you see that? Let's try it again. I'm going to double click into C3 because I'm going to do the same thing for February. So I'm going to say hyphen 2016. Wait a minute. It's not 16 anymore. It's 2000. Man, I'm way off. All right, this should be 19, right? 2019. I'm going to hit my enter key. There we go. What just happened there? There was two little things, right? Let's get back in and fix this one. This one should be 19. Ooh, that's weird. Double click that cell. Now I got 1/1/2016. I want to change that to 19. Hit my enter key. We got January 19. What just happened there? Let's do for March, hyphen 2019. Catching it? So we're now working with a date value. And how do we know that? Well, a couple things happened. One, they're now right aligned. They are on the right-hand side of the cell. Remember that discussion? that's supposed to happen with numeric values. Well, you know what? Inside of Excel and most applications, dates are treated as numeric values. That's just the way it goes. They are numeric. You may have text in there like Jan, Feb, Mar, but underlining, they are numbers, right? You saw when I double clicked inside of there, you actually get a date format. Here I've got the day, month, year, right? I go over into February, give that one a double click. Got the, month, day, year. I said day, month, year. So I've got month, day, year inside of there, 2019. So we've now got some date values. Okay. Underlining once again, and I can see this up above here inside of my formula bar, that we've actually got a date. It is right aligned. It is numeric. It's a date value. Treats it as such. But underlining that is a date. Now, like I mentioned earlier, depending on what region you live in, your dates may be formatted differently. It's fine. However you want to format them. Now, if you do this, type in Jan-2019, hit your enter key, and it doesn't change it, I would take a look at your date settings or your date format. Now, what if I wanted to actually say 2019? Because right now it just says Jan 19. Is that January the 19th? Or is it January 2019? Right? I want that to be much clearer. So what I'm going to do here, and this is something we're going to get much more in depth into as we continue through and we start to get into the formatting section of this course, is I want to format these cells. So I'm going to highlight B3 to D3. I'm going to go to my Home tab, top of my screen, and I'm going to go into the Number section. All right. Underneath Number, we can currently see that it says Custom. Typically, that'll say a General. If I go to any other cell out here, we'll see General inside of that box. There it is, General. Well, here, with that selected, I'm going to go up here to the little drop down, and we've got some default formatting options for us. We do have some dates. We got short date, long date. It's not really what I want. I'm going to scroll down. We got a whole bunch of other stuff inside of there. But down at the bottom, we have an option for more number formats. I'm going to go into more number formats. Here, underneath category, I'll grab date. And here I'm going to find, let's see, I want the month and year. So do we see one like that in there? Month and year. Let's see, then that's someone. I want the abbreviated month. That one's looking pretty good, but I had it the other way around, right? That's actually the day anyways. That's not what I want. Oh, here we go. All right, now we got March-12, but I want it to say 2019, right? Do we have one like that in there? That's the full month. That one's got the day in there as well. I don't want the day. I don't see the one that I want inside of there, right? They got lots of variations on it, but I want it to say Jan 2019, Feb 2019, right? I want that 2000 in there as well. So we do have some defaults that we can pick from, some preset date formats. But here I'm going to go to custom. And let's see, do we have it in here? They got a bunch of default custom ones. So here's some dates. We got the month and the year. Nope, not seeing the one I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to where it says type. I'm going to wipe out what's in there. I'm just going to backspace or delete that out. And I'm going to put my own custom date format in there. So I want it to be 3-letter abbreviation month. So I'm going to do MMM. That's your month. You can even see a preview of it right there. Jan. Hyphen. YYYY. 2019. So we got 3 M's for the month. Hyphen. 4 Y's for the year. So we get the 4-digit year. I'll hit OK. And there we have it. Nice months, got it spelled out to us, January 2019, February 2019, and so on. That was a few steps that we went through. Always feel free in any of the videos. You can always rewind. You can rewatch the videos, whatever you need to do. There's a few steps that we went through there. Or you can just leave it the way that you want or come up with another format. And if you do that, here we go. Ready for this? If you do that, if you change your format or if you're in another region and it should be formatted differently, whatever you want to do, share it with us. Go to the Q&A section, find the discussion board. It's just called Q&A, questions and answers. I'm right there. I love answering questions. I love seeing the work that my students do. Share it with us. Take a screenshot, add it to the post. Let us know what you're doing. All right. So get this portion done. Get your dates in there. 2019, looking good. Then we'll jump into the next lecture. I'm excited. We're going to be getting into some formulas. All right, here we go. Now, before we get into creating some formulas, there's something that I want to kind of recap. We've talked about it just a little bit and even just kind of in passing, but it's a very, very important concept as far as formulas are concerned. So let's make sure that we've nailed this one down, and I'm going to make it quick because we're going to talk about it again and again, but I want to get this up front, out of the way. That way formulas will go nice and smooth for us. All right, we're going to talk about cell references. The way that you reference a value or a location within your Excel worksheet. Here we go. All right. So we've got our spreadsheet started looking pretty good. Got the basic structure, got labels, got some numeric values in there, got some dates. Looking good. Now I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. If I hold down the control key on my keyboard and use the middle mouse wheel, this will allow me to scroll in. I love that one. You can also use the little scroll bar. Let me move my big fat head out of the way here. You can use the zoom or the scroll bar down here in the corner as well of your Excel interface. That will allow you to zoom. Oops, let's get that out of the way. That will allow you to zoom as well, just right there, up and down. All right, but I like using the middle mouse wheel and the control key. Very, very nice. All right, so now here, cell references. How do you reference content within an Excel document? This might be common knowledge. You may have done this many times within your Excel work. If not, this is something that's going to follow you around inside of Excel in everything you do, especially when it comes to formulas. So imagine this. Somebody sends you this document, right? We save it. Somebody saves it. They throw it into an email and they send it to you. And they tell you, hey, I want you to go take a look at some values, right? Let's go take a look at the values for X month, right? Or for X bill, or for whatever, right? You open this up. This is a pretty simple one, so it may not be that hard to find. But what if you had several months in there? They say, go look at the month of August. Gotta love August. August is a good month. Go look at August. But now you got August 2019, you got August 2020, you got August 2018, whatever. So, well, it's like, well, which August am I supposed to be looking at? Well, you can write them back and say, well, which year, right? Which month, which year should I be looking at? Hopefully they get back to you. But wouldn't it be nice if they told you exactly where to look, right? When you say February, I want you to go look at February values. Okay, well, where is February? Well, February starts inside of cell C3. And I can find that right here. I clicked into February. Up here in the top left corner of my screen, I can see C3. There it is. If I click someplace else, let's say I want you to look at January's value for candy. Okay, great. Well, that's inside of cell B8. These are our cell references. Cells, they can be referenced as a standalone cell, a single cell, like we just did. C3, B8, D3, D6, whatever. They can be referenced as a range of cells. I can say, I want you to look at all the February values. Well, that goes from C4 to C8. And I'm just left clicking and dragging. Left click C4, drag down to C8. I've now selected that range of cells. Now I look at the box at the top and it still tells me just one cell, C4, because that's the active cell within that selection. But I've got that range of cells, C4 to C8. Maybe I want you to reference the entire table. Well, that goes from A3 down to D8, right? That's that range of data, that range of cells. Now, a couple little shortcuts for you. You can also reference non-contiguous or cells that are not touching. This will become very important when you get into formulas, you get into charts, you get into pivot tables, you get into something that you want to reference a range of cells that do not touch, non-contiguous group of cells. So I can say, I want you to look at the headers and rent. Let's get that right there. Now, I also want you to look at food. Well, food is 3 rows down from bills and rent. Well, here, I can hold down the control key on my keyboard and I can select food. So now I can get a non-contiguous group of cells. Again, this is great if you want to create charts and you don't want to include all of the data. I just want the headers, the months there, and I want rent, and I want food. Okay? Don't select it all. Just get the data that you need. All right. So this is, again, just really quickly, cell references. You reference cells, you reference the location of these values. Now, again, very important for our next section when we get into formulas, because that's what you're going to do is you're going to reference the data by its cell reference. Get ready for it. But take a moment and spend just a little bit of time and identify where these different values are at. What cell, what column, row address are they located in? Now that we've got cell references at just kind of a high level, an introductory level, I know some of you have been using them forever. It's like, yeah. Some of us are newer into the system. Very important, a very important foundational building block that makes up our Excel experience. Make sure that that's comfortable. If you got any questions on it, again, jump into the Q&A section, ask your questions there, right? I'm right there. I love answering questions. I love seeing what everybody is learning. It's great. So now that we got cell references down, let's take a look at building basic calculations. Nothing big here. We're going to do some math. Now, for me, math was never my strong suit. You know, going through school, it was like that period of the day that I just wanted to be somewhere else, right? Doing addition, subtraction, multiplication. When I got into algebra and whatnot, then my mind just exploded. What is going on here? Well, the nice thing is, as long as we know what we want to do, I want to add some numbers. I want to do some multiplication. I want to do some division. As long as we understand what it is that we want to do and what we want our outcome to be, Excel will do the math for us. It's like a calculator on steroids. It can do so much for us. Now we're going to start out with the basic building block once again. Understanding basic formulas, basic mathematical operators performed inside of an Excel spreadsheet. And then as we continue through the course, we're going to get into more and more and more advanced topics as far as formulas, functions, and calculations are concerned. So let's start out with some basics here. All right. So I want to be able to start out with a calculation that gives me the sum, and we're going to do some addition here, some sum of January. Give me the total for January. Now give me the total for February, for March, and so on. Now here's where the prior lecture comes into play. Take a look. I'm going to jump into cell B9. That's my total for January. Now, we talked about a couple different types of data that you can input into an Excel document. You had text or alpha characters. You had numeric. You had dates. Now here's a fourth one. We can input what Excel considers formulas or calculations. Now, in order for Excel to recognize that what you're about to do or what you're performing here is a calculation, you start your calculations with a specific character. In this case, I'm going to start it with an equal sign. Okay? This is true from the most basic, like what we're about to do here, to the most advanced calculation that you can perform inside of Excel. You start them with an equal sign. All right. So I got my equal sign. Excel's now, okay, ready. Here we go. I'm going to create a calculation. So I got my equals. Now I want to be able to add up those numbers for January. Well, I could do this. I could say, okay, rent for January is 1,000. 1, 2, 3. There's my 1,000. Now what type of math am I going to do here? Well, I want to add this up. I want to get a sum. So I'm going to say plus, what's my next one? 100 plus 150 plus 300 plus 100. All right, I'm just doing math. I've told Excel, there's my equal sign, that, hey, I'm going to do some math here. This is going to be a calculation. And I'm just taking the numbers and performing some addition on those numbers. Once I'm done, I hit my enter key, and there's my results. $1,650, $1,650 for the month of January for my various bills. What do you think? Did you get it? Equals this plus this plus this plus this. Now, some of you are thinking, well, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, right? I mean, if I double click that cell again, 1650, double click, that opens the formula back up. I typed out each of those numbers, right? What if I made a mistake? What if I put one too many zeros, or I left a zero out, right? Now I'm at 10,650. Oops. I get back in there. I get rid of that zero, right? Hit my enter key. I made the correction, but it's a lot of work. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. What happens if these numbers here update? What if I get back here and say, oh, wait, I spent $125 on my phone bill in January. It wasn't 100. So I get in here, I change this from 100 to 125. Oops. Hit my enter key. I updated it there. But did it update there? Nope, didn't update. Double click, it's still at the 100. So now I'd have to change this. Now it's correct. Right now I'm changing it in two different places. Well, you remember the previous discussion that we had, right, on cell references. Let's get rid of this. Let's put this back to 100. Let's get rid of this. This is crazy. I'm just going to delete that. Crazy. We could do it that way. Definitely. You just saw it, right? Equals this value plus this value plus this value. We could do that. Or, all right, back to B9. Start our formula. We're going to inform Excel that we're creating a calculation. Equals. Put our equal sign in there. Now I'm going to use the cell references. So the first one, we're in the B column, 1,000, it's in B4. So I'm going to say B4 plus B5 plus B6. Now, ever since the 2000 edition of Excel, we've got some nice color coding going on here. Very, very slick. Something small, but very helpful. Plus B7 plus B8. Now I'm just referencing cells, right? B4. Take the value of what's inside of location B4, cell address B4, and add that to B5. Then add that to B6. Once you're done, hit your enter key. There's our answer. 1650. Now, if one of them updates, we go for, oh, no, it was 125. 125 for phone for January. Hit my enter key. Keep an eye down here. Hit my enter key. And I've now updated the formula. All because I'm using cell references instead of the literal values. What do you think? Pretty slick, right? And all I'm doing is just some math here. I'm doing some addition. You can do whatever type of math. You can do your subtraction, your multiplication, your division, whatever it is, right? Now I want you to take a moment. Take a moment. I want you to complete the rest of them. Get some practice in here, right? Jump over to C9, add that up. Jump over to D9, add up March. Then I want you to hop up to the E column, create a formula. You start it with what character? Equals. And then we're just going to use the cell references. So in this case, it's going to be B4, which is my 1,000 rent for January, plus C4, which is for the month of February, plus D4. So now I've got my three values there for rent. I'll hit my enter key, and I'm just doing some addition, some simple math here. So try this out, complete that, get a feel for it. I'm going to take it even a step further. I know some of you are waiting for some other methods on how to complete this, because this is still pretty intensive, right? We've only got 4 or 5 records there, but what if you had hundreds or thousands of records? I definitely don't want to do it that way. No way, right? I'm not typing out each and every cell reference. Crazy, right? So we're going to see some other ways to be able to perform these calculations as well and streamline our efforts. But for now, again, we're building that foundation. We're getting each and every little step in there so that we know exactly what's going on inside of Excel. Get this done. Get your calculations in there. Add up those figures. Then we'll jump into the next lecture, and I want to take calculations even a step further. All right, here we go. All right, how's that looking for you so far? You got your calculations in there? I've got my total row there, got the total for each month, and I've got my total column in there, my total for each bill, as well as a grand total for all the bills for all the months, 5,125. Now, if you're using your own numbers, great. Just be aware of that. Don't try to compare it against mine. If you're using my exact numbers, make sure everything's looking good in there. If I got something wrong, right, let me know, right? Let me know. Jump into the Q&A section. Let me know I got one of them wrong, but I think these are looking pretty good right now. All right. So I want to take this idea of cell references and formulas a step further. We're going to do a couple things here, but the topic that we're going to get into is a difference between our two reference types, because we actually have two different types of ways or methods that we can use to reference cells inside of an Excel worksheet. We have what's called relative and absolute. So the first one, a relative reference, versus the second one is an absolute reference, or I've also heard it called a fixed reference. All right, so what's the difference? Well, let's go ahead and delete out the formulas that you just created. I'm going to delete them all except the first one, the January total. So let's delete out all that hard work you just did, right? All that work, I'm sorry. All right, but I'm going to show you even simpler ways to do this. But again, building these key concepts. So our first formula, if I give that one a double click, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cell references in there. B4 through B8, right? And we're just adding them up, giving us a total, a sum. Now, these reference types, these are called a relative reference. Now, what does that actually mean? What's a relative reference? Well, I'm going to hit my escape key here just to close that out. A relative reference means from this location, you're going to get cells 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to get these 5 cells right here, right? Double click. It's B4, B5, B6, B7, B8. Those 5 cells from that location. Now, let's take this a step further. What if I now want to get February, right? Right here, I want to get February's total, but this time, instead of the B cells, it should sum up the C cells. Okay? Well, what if I do this? What if I go to my 1675, which is my total for the B column, I copy, Control C, I copy that, I go over to the C9, and I paste it in, Control V. Look at that. Now I've got my total for February. Well, how did it do that? How did it know which cells to sum up? Well, it knew because it was a relative reference. The formula is the same. If I give it a double click, we still got the equal sign, we still got the plus signs, but the column changed. It's now C4, C5, C6, C7, C8. Before, it was the B column. So now we're just saying copy that from here to here. And now from this location, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells up. And let's add up those cells. Let's try it again. I'm going to copy this one, Control C, hop over to the empty cell for March, Control V for paste, and I'll paste that in. Now I've got my 1750 for the D column. So all we're doing here is literally just copying and pasting the formula from one location to another. It performs the same formula, but relative to its location. 5 cells up, 5 cells up, 5 cells up. What if I did this? What if I hop over here and I do 10, 10, 10. I'm just typing in some 10s. Oops. 10. And I come back here, I say copy, Control C, hop over here. I'm going to paste it in. What do you think is going to happen? Control V, paste. There's my 50. I'm just in a new location, new cell, right? But it's always 5 cells up. That's a relative reference. Or whatever direction, right? What if I did that over here? What if I go to the E column and I say equals, what is it? B4 plus C4 plus, D4. Right, so now I'm in this cell, but now I'm going 3 cells to the left. And I'm going to add those up. So I hit my enter key, there's my 3000. But I'm just going to copy, hop down a cell, paste it in. There's my 350. 125 plus 125 is 250 plus 100. Oh, excuse me. 250 plus, yeah, that's right. 125, 125, 250 plus 100, 350. Just paste it in. Now it's in the 5th row as opposed to the 4th row. And I can do that again. Copy, paste, 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 paste. Relative references. Huge, huge, right? You've got consistency in the layout of your document. It's always 3 rows to the left. It's always 5 rows up, whatever it is. You create one and you just copy that to its new location. 5 rows up, 3 rows to the left. Done. Right? Save you so much time. And this is relative references. Let me hit my escape key. That's going to get rid of the little marquee, the marching ants. I'm going to delete these back out. All right, now remember I mentioned that there's 2 different types of references. That was relative, and that's what we got by default. But you also have what's called an absolute reference. Let's take a look at that one. So I've got my formulas back in there, got my totals back in there. I'm going to hop over to the F column, it's F3, and I'm going to type in %. There we go, hit my enter key. So now what I want to do here is I want to perform a calculation. We're going to do some division here that'll tell me what percentage each of my bills is of my grand total. I want to know what's 3,000 of 5,125. What's 350 of 5,125, and so on. All right, so now for this one, still a formula. Remember, you start all your formulas with the same character. So I'll say equals, and I'm going to say E4. This time I'm actually just going to click on E4. Look at that, it puts it in there for me. So equals E4, divide, and I'm going to use the backslash as the division character, and then I'm going to go grab E9. So I'm taking E4, and I'm going to divide that with E9. Backslash, / I said backslash, didn't I? So looking at your number pad, right? That's actually your /. So you want to use the one off your number pad. If you don't have a full number pad, then you're going to look at your keyboard and it is with the question mark key. Okay? Look for that one. So we want / right there. That's your /, right? Backslash, /. We want the /. So E4, divide that by E9. I'm going to hit my enter key. All right. So didn't give me exactly what I'm looking for, but it gave me a percentage. It's a decimal percentage. So roughly 58%. Ouch. 58% of my grand total goes to rent. All right. Now, what type of reference is this? I give that a double click. E4, E9, these are relative references. Now, I want to do that exact same thing, but for phone. And then I want to do it for credit card. And then I want to do it for food and so on. Well, I jump up, I grab that formula, I copy, Control C, I drop down a cell. Now I want to get 350 and divide that by 5,125. So I copy the previous one. I'm going to paste it in, Control V. Ooh, what's that? Pound div /0 exclamation mark. What went wrong? Well, I'm going to drop down to the next cell. I'm going to paste it in here. That's not working. What's going on? Well, remember, there's 2 different types of references. Here, we're using a relative reference. So it says, okay, from this spot, right, from F4, we're going to go 1 cell to the left. That's E4. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells down, and we're going to divide with E9. All right, good. That works. Roughly 58% for rent. So now I copied that down, and I got an error. Let's give that a double click. All right, what's going on here? So from this location, remember relative, from this location, we went 1 cell to the left. That's great. And then we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells down. Because the first one went 5 cells, right? So when we copied it down, it still went 5 cells. That's not right. What's this one doing? This one still went 5 cells down to E11. Okay, relative reference. From that location to this. Well, this time, we need it to go 1 cell to the left, but then always go to E9. That should not change. So this is where the absolute reference comes into play. I'm going to go back to my first formula, and I'm going to make a change to the E9 reference. I'm going to make it an absolute. So I'm going to put a $sign before the column reference E, and I'm going to put a $sign before the row reference 9. That makes E9, that cell, absolute. So I hit my enter key, still got my 58% there. I'm just going to copy that, Control C, and I'll paste it in. There we have it. There's my 100%. So we got roughly 58% for rent, roughly 6% for phone, 10% for credit card, 18% for food, and 6% for candy, with a grand total of 100%. Now, each of these formulas is now referencing E9. There it is, E9. It will always be E9. You copy that formula anywhere, doesn't matter where. I take that, I copy it over here somewhere. Let's not put it behind my head. Let's put it up there. I got a 0 because it's not doing much math for me, but it's still E9. Over 1 cell, hit E9. Over 1 cell, hit E9, and so on. So you got relative references, really just based on its position. It's going to move in a specific direction, so many cells. And you got absolute references that absolutely reference this cell. And remember the $signs. $sign E, $sign 9. You got your absolute reference. So again, just like every time, practice. Try this out. Jump into your own version, create a percent column. Make sure you got all the other formulas in there because you're going to need those. And then create your percent and find out what percentage each bill is of your grand total. And remember, to streamline it, make the absolute reference copy paste. Before we got into creating calculations inside of Excel, I mentioned as long as you know what you want to do, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, as long as you understand the basics of the math, Excel does the rest for you. But there's something else that we need to be aware of, and this is going to take us back to our early days of math. We're going to talk a little bit about the order of operation, or essentially the order that your different arithmetic operators go through. What happens first? What if you've got a more complex calculation? It's got some addition and multiplication in there. What takes place first? This is the order of operation. Now, I'm going to give you a little acronym, one that you may recall from your elementary days of school. Maybe not. Took me a little while to kind of dig that back up from my past. I'm going to introduce you to it here and hopefully spark a little bit of thought that you had before. So open in front of you, I've got a completed exercise file. It's called Order of Operation -01. It's an Excel document, and it's a part of this lecture. You can download it right here. Now, it's a simple one, not much going on in here. I got an imaginary bill. It's got 3 items in it, $100 for the first one, $150 for the next, and $55 for the third item. We have a subtotal. I want to be able to get a sum of all those values. And then we got a total where I want to get the sum of the items plus the tax. Okay. So how do we go about completing this? Well, what if I hop into cell C6? And I'm just going to do some basic arithmetic. I'm going to do some addition here. So I'm going to say equals. We got that, right? I'm going to say this cell plus this cell plus this cell. So just C3 plus C4 plus C5. Hit my enter key. Then we got our $305 worth of those 3 items. Now I want to get the grand total, which includes the 8% tax. Well, all right. Well, it's another formula. So I'm instead of cell C8, I'm going to say this cell times this cell. So C6 times C7. What do you think? I'm going to hit my enter key here. Oh, wait a minute. $24.40. That's not the grand total. Well, I just got what's 8% of $305. Got that there? So $305, 8% of that is $24.40. Well, I want to get the grand total, so I want to say 305 plus the 24.40, right? So let's delete that one out. Now we can go about completing this one a couple different ways. I'm going to show you just one way here. You may have other ways that you want to accomplish this through. Whatever method, the important part is the order that the operators go through. What happens first, then what happens next? Take a look. So I'm going to jump back in here. I'm going to say equals calculation. I want to take this one. I want to multiply it by the 8%, but not just the 8%. I want to multiply it by 108%. So I'm going to say plus 1.0. So essentially, we're going to take the 8% and add 1 or add 100% to it. So we'll end up with 108%. So I'm going to hit my enter key here. Ooh, what happened there? 2540. That doesn't sound right, right? We wanted that 305 plus the 2440 that we saw earlier, right? So what's happening here? I'm going to go to this formula. I'm going to go up to my formulas tab, top of your screen. We're going to talk much more in depth about the formulas tab as we continue later into this course. But on the formulas tab, you have a section called formula auditing. And there's so many goodies in here. We're going to talk about a lot of these in the 102 and the 103 section of this course. But I'm going to introduce you to one of them here called Evaluate Formula. So I have cell C8, a formula cell currently selected. I'm going to go to Evaluate Formula, and this is going to allow us to evaluate this formula right here, which is C6 times C7 plus 1. It's going to allow us to evaluate a piece at a time and figure out what's going on. So I'm going to go to Evaluate Formula. This opens up my Evaluate Formula window. So in here, I have an Evaluate button. And currently, you can see my formula here. C6 times C7 plus 1. All right. So it's going to evaluate C6. That's underlined, denoting that that's going to get evaluated first. So I'm going to hit Evaluate. C6 evaluated to 305. Now it's going to evaluate C7. All right. C7 evaluated at 0.08. So now it's going to evaluate 305 times 8. That doesn't sound right. We want to evaluate this portion right here first before it does the multiplication. All right. So if I keep going here, I evaluate, it finds the 2440, which was that leftover, which was the 8% of the 305, right? And then it's going to evaluate the plus 1, which gives us the 2540. That's not right. So I get back here. I'm going to say evaluate. I don't want to evaluate that next. I need to evaluate the 0.08 plus 1. Give me the 1.08 or the 108%. And then multiply that by the 305. So here's where the order of operation comes into play. So I'm going to write something here on my screen. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So here's an acronym for you. Now here, this is what I was taught going through grammar school, right? And it stuck with me somewhat. It's an acronym and it stands for the order of operation. It's parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, add, subtract. So this is the order that your mathematical operators will go through. The precedence that they take. Parentheses happens first, then your exponents, then your multiplication, division, and then your add and subtract. Now, in some regions, and this was brought to my attention, I was teaching Excel one day, and somebody in my class was, I can't remember where they were from, weren't originally native North Americans. They came from whatever other country, and they introduced me to another acronym, same thing, but they just called them something a little different. And I know multiple countries use this, but this was, and I gotta look. Let's see, it was BODMAS. So we got brackets, it was operators. Operators. Am I saying that right? I gotta go back through my notes here. And then, or orders, orders, brackets, orders, then your division, multiplication, and your add and subtraction. So brackets was the same as being parentheses. Orders was the same as exponents. Then you had your multiplication, division, and then your add and subtraction. That's it right there. Same thing in the end, but it's just the order that the operators go through. So let's take that. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, add, subtract, and let's take it back to our formula. So if I look at my formula here, I'll just give this a double click. So currently, this right here, that's multiplication. That, in the order of operation, happens before addition. Well, I don't want that to happen. I want this to get evaluated first. C7 plus 1, take that 8, add the 1, give me the 108%, get that to happen first, and then multiply it by C6. So how do we change that? How do we get the addition to happen first? P, parentheses, please, right? So here, I'm going to wrap this inside of parentheses, get that to happen first. Whatever's inside the parentheses, that happens first, and then the multiplication happens. So now I can hit my enter key, and there's my $329.40. So it was the 305 plus the 2440 that the 8% gave us. So let's evaluate this formula again. With that cell selected, back to formulas, formula auditing, or evaluate formula. So now it's going to evaluate the C6. I'll evaluate that. Great, got the 305. But now it's going to skip over the multiplication and get to the parentheses and evaluate that. C7 was 0.08 plus the 1, gave us the 1.08 or 108%. And now it's going to evaluate the multiplication and give us the 329.40. That's your order of operation. Very important. Again, as long as we understand what we want to have happen, Excel does the math for us. But we need to be aware of the order the operators go through. Just remember that. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponent, multiplication, division, add, subtract. Try it out. Jump in there. You can download this file. It's called order of operation -01, and you can try it on your own. Right? Get a feel for it. Understand why Excel needs it done that way. And that's just math in general. It's not just Excel, right? Excel uses math, but the order of operation is universally within math. Try it out. In the previous section of this course, we talked about, or at least we began to talk about, building calculations within Excel. And we saw just a simple little calculation. We were able to do some addition as far as referencing cells. We were able to take a cell reference, such as B4, and then add that to cell reference B5. Then add that to B6 and B7 and B8. We were able to do some addition. You've got all your mathematical operators available to you. You've got the addition symbol, you got minus, subtraction, you got multiplication, you got division, you got your exponent, you got all those various operators that you can utilize to perform arithmetic type calculations. Math, right? Well, built into the Excel application, the nice people at Microsoft have built several functions that we can then utilize to perform calculations. So that's what we're going to take a look at next year. And I've created this super slick little PowerPoint presentation to talk a little bit about what Excel functions are, how we can utilize them to help us become more efficient as we work with our data inside of Excel. So let's jump into the PowerPoint here. And I'm going to provide this as a download resource so you can take this PowerPoint and do whatever you like with it. So first off, an Excel function. Really, all an Excel function is a predefined calculation. That's it. Now, the nice people at Microsoft have built a few hundred different functions for us to use. These predefined little packages that'll do some type of calculation. Whether it's summing up a range of cells, It's finding an average within a range of cells. It's looking up information based on criteria that we give the application. It could be a whole slew of things. I want to be able to find my house payment or the next car that I buy. How much am I going to pay for that monthly? Well, built into Excel, they have a function called PMT, or the payment function, that will do that for you. Now, in order for us to utilize a function, we need to really understand what the function is and what are the different pieces of a function. So let me give you an example here. So this is going to be one of the first functions that we see inside of this course. This is the most common function that is used worldwide within Excel. This is the sum function. So here's an example, and this is taken right from the exercise file from the monthly budget worksheet that we're creating together as a group. So the sum function, as you can see here, I want to build a sum up. I want to add up a range of cells. Well, in order for me to do that, we can do it like we did earlier, where I say equals this cell plus 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 this, right? I can do that and do that and do that. What if you have thousands of records and you want to add up, you want to sum up all of that data? That could take forever, right? Typing that out like we did earlier. Well, built into Excel, we got the sum function that'll streamline those efforts. Now, I want to break down functions in general. There's really three different pieces that we use as we build out an Excel function. Now, we just saw a quick preview of the sum function, but let's now break it down into its three different pieces. The first thing, and we've actually already seen this, every calculation, from the simplest calculation to the most absurd, complex, uber huge, dynamic, whatever, huge function, right, or calculation, they all start with the same thing. From the most basic to the most complex, they all start with the equal sign. Now, the next step, as far as using a function, you then need to designate or denote which function you want to use. For example, if I want to sum up a range of cells, I'll say equals, and I'll bring in the sum function. That's its name, sum, S-U-M. If I want to find the average of a range of cells, I'll say equals average. That's it. Now, the thing about learning functions, it's just that. You got to learn the functions. We got to know that, oh, there's a sum function. There's an average function. There's a function for looking up information. There's a function for finding the minimum value from a range of cells or the maximum value from a range of cells. We got to learn what the functions are. But once you got that down, then there's one more piece. We got to bring in the function arguments or the parameters that that function needs. So let me give you an example of a complete function here. So this is what we were looking at earlier. It's got all three pieces. It's got the equal sign. Remember, that's a given. You always do that with any type of calculation. Then you got the function name. In this case, you got sum. And then the sum function specifically, within the parentheses, needs to know the range of cells that you want to sum up. In this case, equal sum. Let's sum up cells B4 through B8. And as far as functions are concerned, when you deal with a range of cells, to say through, like B4 through B8, we use the colon character. B4 colon B8. That's your through. That's your range of cells. So that's really the three pieces. Equals, the function name, and any arguments or parameters that that function needs in order for it to do its job. Remember, these functions, they're predefined. The nice people at Microsoft built them. They determine how we use them and what types of data it needs to do its job. That's where the arguments come into play. Now, the next thing that I want to bring your attention to, and we're going to get very familiar with this window. This is called the function arguments window. This is a little window built into the Excel application that's going to assist us in utilizing these functions, especially when you're just starting out utilizing functions, whether it's the sum function or something more complex like index and match or VLOOKUP or some other more complex function. You're going to want some help. So this function argument window is going to come in very handy because it'll kind of take your hand and walk you through the process and explain each step to you. So you can find this window by going to the little FX button, which is right next door to the formula bar towards the top of your window within Excel. You'll see just a little button up there. It'll say FX on it. You click on it, and you can go find your functions, and then eventually you'll bring it into the arguments for that specific function. Now here, I'm looking at the arguments for the sum function. You can see number 1 and number 2 there. Well, the number 1 and number 2, they're just expecting a range of cells. Well, you want to sum, what is it that you want to sum? So here I just said I want to sum B4 through, remember the colon, through B8. Now, the nice thing about this window is, again, it kind of takes your hand, walks you through the process. They give you some great information. Like here, they're going to tell you what the function does. Might be brief. Here it just says, hey, the sum function, it adds up all the numbers in a range of cells. Great. The next thing it tells you is, well, what do those arguments mean? What is number 1? What is number 2? Well, it says number 1, number 2, and so on. You can have between 1 and 255 numbers to sum, or ranges of cells that you can sum up. 255, that's quite a bit. It's also, down in the lower left-hand corner of the window, is a nice little link that'll jump you out to a Microsoft page that'll give you some help about the active function. So in this case, if I click that link, help on this function in the lower left, it'll take me to a Microsoft page that talks all about the sum function. Super slick, very helpful. So this is your arguments window. Again, Excel's got all sorts of functions in there. As you're learning them, I highly suggest not only going through this course and learning the functions, I'm going to walk you through them, but read through the window. Get an idea of what they're all about and potentially what you're going to be using them for and what you could use them for. Now, like I mentioned, there are loads of functions inside of Excel. By the last number that I read, as of the 2013 edition, we've actually a few versions later, there were 461 functions built into the Excel application. That's quite a bit. Then Microsoft adds functions, they remove functions, and typically when they remove a function, they replace it with something else. Something that's more streamlined, more efficient, does more for you, is more accessible, those types of things. But there are loads of functions inside of Excel. Now here, this is a part of the ribbon inside the Excel interface. This is the Formulas tab. You'll find the Formulas tab there at the top of your screen. Now here, they give you what's called the function library, essentially a bunch of little books where you can go find all these various functions. And we're going to take a look at this. We're going to become familiar with it and how you can find the various functions that live inside of your copy of Excel. All right. So get ready for this. I'm excited. I love functions. Any way that's going to save me time and help me become more efficient as I'm performing calculations. Great. Let's get in there. First, we're going to start out with some more basic type functions like sum, min, max, average, count, those types of things. And as you progress later and later inside of this course, we're going to see more complex, more advanced, those larger uber dynamic functions that I spoke about earlier. All right, get ready for it. Let's jump into the next lecture. We're going to take a look at our first function, those predefined calculations that are built inside of Excel. The first one that we're going to take a look at here is the sum function. This is the most common, most widely used function in all of Excel. Worldwide. Now, I'm back inside of our example file. This is that monthly budget that we've built up to this point. And right now, we've got some calculations in there, right? We started out with just some basic arithmetic style calculations. For example, if I go to B9, which is my total for January, I give that 1675 a double click. This will open up my formula. There it is. And I'm just doing some addition. I'm saying take this cell, add it to this cell, then add that to this cell, this cell, this cell, this cell, right? We only had 5 records there, right? So doing this plus this plus this plus this wasn't too bad. Although I probably don't want to do a lot of it. What if you had 20, 30, 50, hundreds or thousands of records? Is that really something you want to do? You want to retype that over and over again? No way. No way. Unless I'm getting paid to do it by line item, right? Then maybe I'll do it. But probably not, right? I want to find a quicker, more efficient way of doing this. And this is where a function, something like the sum function will come in and make this so much more efficient, faster. It's huge, right? Let's take a look at the sum function. I'm going to hit my escape key just to close that out. Now to start this out, we're actually going to replace all of these formulas right here. So from E4 to E8, and from B9 to E9. Let's delete those out. Get rid of them. All right, you can go through, you can highlight them, just hit your delete key on your keyboard. Let's get rid of them. Now that broke the percent calculation. Not too big of a deal. It just means this pound div /0 exclamation mark error. This is your divide by zero error. And mathematically, you can't divide by zero because we have no numbers there. It's giving us that error. No problem. It'll come back, but we just got to fill out the calculations now. All right, here comes the sum function. Now, the process that we're about to go through here might be just a little bit different based on the version of Excel that you're working with. There might be, if you're on the brand new version, there might be a little bit of automation happening for you. If you're still sitting on 2007 or even something earlier than that, probably not, but maybe 2007, 2010, 2013, 2016, and you might see a little bit difference, but nothing huge. And I'll talk about a difference here. Nothing huge. So I'm inside of B9, and I just want to sum up this range of cells, B4 to B8. Now, the first time we use this one, we're going to go through the formulas tab, and we're going to go find the sum function. Now, some of you watching this might be familiar with the shortcut that you could use, or even a keyboard shortcut. One button press that would do all this for you. Now, if you're familiar with the shortcut, you're familiar with AutoSum, just hold off for a moment. We're building some key blocks here, some key building blocks that's going to help us as we get into more and more advanced topics. So hold off on the shortcut for a moment. We're going to come back to it. All right, so I'm in B9. I'm going to go to my formulas tab. Inside of there, we got this function library. The function library contains all these books, and this might be a little bit different compared to the earlier versions. The buttons just look a little different, but for the most part, it's the same thing. I'm going to go to math and trig. Math and trig. Math's bad enough, but now you throw trig in there, and it's like, do I really want to click on that one? Math wasn't my strong suit. All right, anyways, math and trig. I'm going to go ahead and click on there. You're going to get a list of all these math-related built-in functions. Remember, predefined functions that are going to do the calculations for you based on input arguments that we give it. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to find the S's. There it is. And I'm going to find sum. There's just plain old sum. I'll give that a click. And this is going to open up the function arguments window that we saw in the prior lecture. Now here's where it might be a little bit different compared to the earlier versions, depending on what you're using. Here, all I did was formulas, math and trig, grab the sum, open up the window for me, and it's already populated B4 through B8. Done. There's my 1675. I can see the result right there. It's right there, formula result, and I'm done. I could just hit OK and call it good, right? Well, again, Excel is pretty smart, and they continually improve it. With each new iteration, Excel gets better and better, and it gets smarter and smarter. Pretty soon, Excel is going to take over the world. It's going to be able to do so much for us. It just automates the experience. Well, if you're on an earlier version, you may not have gotten the default range of cells in there. So I'm just going to delete them out of there. I got rid of what's in number 1, B4 through B8. Gone. What I am going to do is I could type it in. And you say, I want B4 colon, remember through, B8. I can do that. Or, let's delete that out again. I can just select the range of cells that I want. I want B4 through B8. There it is. I'll hit OK. And there's my total, 1675. That's it. I used the built-in function sum to sum up a range of cells. Couple button presses, done. 1675. No more work for me. Now, I want you to practice this. I want you to go through and complete it for February, for March, and then I want you to come over here to the row totals for each bill, and I want you to fill that in as well. Remember, here I am inside of B4. You go to Formulas, Math and Trig, go find the sum function. There it is. Now, if it's already populated it, great. B4 through D4. If not, delete that out, and I'll just go highlight the correct range of cells. That's it. I hit OK, and there's my 3,000 for rent. So complete it. Do the rest of them there. Do the rest of the calculations. Get all your sums in there. Then we're going to take a look at a few other functions, these predefined calculations, to do some more math for us. The next two functions that we're going to take a look at here are pretty common as well. Perhaps not as common as the sum function, but you're going to see these two pretty often inside of Excel documents. We're going to look at the built-in min and max functions. Two very similar functions, and in fact, they're going to look very similar in structure. Remember the three parts? Equals, function name, arguments. Very similar to the sum function. Take a look. So I'm back inside my exercise file. Hopefully you've taken a moment to go through and practice that sum function and complete it for the rest of the months and for your row totals as well for each of the bills. Now, if you got any questions on the sum function or functions in general, jump into the Q&A section and ask your questions. Again, I love getting questions. Ask them. All right. So now, min and max. To get this set up, I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, just so I separate myself from our nice little spreadsheet. I'm going to go into row 11, and I'm going to put in some labels here. These labels, that's all they're going to be, just labels to label our calculations. So I'm going to bring in min. I'm going to hit my enter key. I'm going to bring in max, and I'm just going to get set up for the future videos. I'm going to bring in an average, and I think that'll be it for now. Average, did I spell that right? Looks odd. All right. So here, I'm going to go into B11. The first one that we're going to experiment with here is the min function. And like I said, this should feel pretty similar to working with the sum function that we saw earlier. I want to know the minimum value from a range of cells. Smallest value. So I'm going to go into B11. I'm going to go to my formulas tab. We can look at our little books. Earlier, we went into math and trig, right? We wanted to do some math type operation. We wanted to sum. We found it here inside of the math function or the math folder, little book. If I scroll on through, I find the m's. There they are. But I don't see the min or the max inside of there. All right. So not inside of there. We got all these other books that we can look through as well. We got financial, logical, text, date, time, look up and reference. Ooh, I don't know. Where do you find the min and max function? Let's see, there's one called more functions. If I go into there, there's statistical, engineering, cube, information, compatibility, and so on. Let's see. I'm going to guess statistical. And if I scroll through here, I'll find the min function. Now, I knew it was there because I've been using this application forever, right? Well, where do I find it? How do I know where to find this thing at? Well, there's actually a couple different ways that we can do this. We can use the books, and as you become more and more familiar with working inside of Excel and where functions reside, it's going to be a no-brainer. Eventually, you're just going to be typing them out by hand anyways. You may not even go to the formula tab. Well, in the meantime, as you're learning functions, I'm going to hop out of here for a moment. I'm inside of B11. That's where I want the function to show up. So here, I'm going to go click that little FX button that we talked about in a couple of prior videos. I'm going to click on the little insert function button. Here I get the insert function window where I can search. I can type in keywords. I can search by category. And down below, they'll give you suggested functions for that search term or that category. So here I can say, I want to find the min function. So I'll type that in, or I can type in minimum or whatever. I'll hit go. Go. Took a moment there. Gave me recommended, and now it's giving me some suggested or recommended functions. And there's min. So the min function returns the smallest number in a set of values. It ignores logical values in text. All right, it's looking for minimum values of numeric values. So with min selected, I'll hit OK. And this will open up the argument window. And look at that. It's already filled in some information for me. Now, let's take a closer look at that. B4 through B10. B4 through B10. Well, I don't really want that. I don't want B4 through B10. So Excel tried to help me, but B10 is empty and B9 is my total. I don't want to include the total. So I'm just going to wipe that out, delete, and I'll go grab B4 through B8. That's it. Returns the smallest number in a set of values. I'll hit OK. And for the month of January, 100 is my smallest value. Candy. Wow, Candy got the smallest one, huh? All right, there's your minimum. Again, it's just little FX button, go search for it, go to the statistical folder, whatever, find min. Should feel very similar to the sum function. Now, let's look at one more, and this is going to be almost identical. I'm going to drop down one more cell into B12 where I've got the max. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go back to FX. I'll type in max. Go. There's my recommended. I'm going to grab max. Hit OK. Same thing. Oop, B11's not right. I want B4 through B8. All right. It's giving me the result. There it is, 1,000. I'll hit OK. And I've got my maximum value, the largest value from that set of data, being 1,000. That's it. Min and max, two more predefined functions built into the Excel application. Already built for us. We just got to use it, put in the range of cells that we want, and it's done the job for us. So try this out. Get those two, but then also do it for the rest of the months. Get all these cells filled out with your min and max. And if you want to do it for the total or for the percentage, feel free to do it there as well. But get some practice in there. Then we'll jump into the next video and we'll take a look at our next predefined calculation. We're going to look at the average function. Let's take a look at another basic Excel function. We just got done looking at the sum function and the min and max function. Let's now take a look at the average function. Now, you think of average, what type of math goes into completing an average, right? I want to be able to take the cells B4 to B8. This is January's amounts here for our different bills. And I want to be able to find out what the average amount is. Well, normally, if I'm going to write this out on paper or go grab my calculator, I would take all those numbers, I would add them up, 1,000 plus 125 plus 150 plus 300 plus 100, and then I would divide that by the number of entries. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that would give me the average. Now, that's quite a bit of math going on. Well, thankfully, built into Excel, we have the average function that does all of that for us. All we need to do is use the average function and tell it the range of cells that we want to find the average within. Take a look. I'm going to go down into B13. This is where I put my average label earlier. Now, once I'm here, I'm going to go back to my formulas tab. I'm going to go back to math and trig, and I'm going to find average. A-V-E-R, average. It's not there. Where's that average at? I mean, that's math, isn't it? Average. My eyes aren't seeing it, right? All right, well, let's see. If I go to more functions, I go to statistical. Oh, there it is. There's my average. All right, so once again, we talked about this earlier. It's like, well, you need to learn where these functions are at. Or you can go back to that FX button. You'll find it here, that little FX. Or you can even find it up on your formula tab as well. And you can go search for it in there. Just type in the term and it'll find it for you. Okay, so it'll take some practice and getting used to which book we should be going into. So more functions, statistical, and I got average. You actually see there's a few different types of averages in there. We're going to grab just plain old average. All right, let's see, B11 to B12. Well, that's not what I want. Excel's trying to be helpful, but it grabbed the min and max values. So I'll delete that out. And I'm going to go grab the B4 to B8 values. There we have it. It should feel very similar to the sum and min and max functions. That's really it. I'll hit OK. And for the month of January 2019, I've got an average of 335. That's simple. Using the average function and giving it the proper range of cells. So try that one out. And again, complete the rest of them. Get the min and max and the average for each of the months. Let's look at one more of the basic functions built into Microsoft Excel. We've looked at sum, min, max, and average. Let's now take a look at the count function. All right, so I'm back inside of my Excel document. I'm going to drop down just into A14. I'm going to put a label here. Let's just call this count. And what I want to do is find a count of how many bills we pay each month. Now, the count function, it counts numeric values. It doesn't count empty cells, doesn't count text values. It only counts numeric values. So I'm going to hop down here into cell B14, back up to my formulas tab. I'm going to go into more functions, statistical, and let's find count. Plain old count. There's a few other count functions in here, and we're actually going to talk about each of these as we continue through the course. But for now, let's just grab plain old count. All right. So I did grab the incorrect range of cells, so I'm going to delete that out. I'm going to go grab B4 to B8. And let's see, I can see that there are 5, right? The results of this formula, there are 5 values that I've got selected there. And they are numeric values. I can see here that the count function counts the number of cells in a range, in our case B4 to B8, that contain numbers. All right, so I got back 5. If I hit OK, there's my 5. I can now complete it for the rest of the cells there. And just to demonstrate, if for some reason I didn't pay one of these bills one of the months, I delete that out. I've now got 4, right, within that slot. Right, I had 5, got rid of 1, 4. Let's put that back. Control Z, I'll undo that. There we have it. All right, that's your count function. Now remember, that only counts numeric values, not blank cells, not text, only numerics. There are other functions though. Excel's got plenty of functions in here. We haven't even skimmed the surface yet. There are so many functions, but we've used some of the common ones. Some being the absolute most common, min and max and average, pretty close up there. And we've got the count function to count numeric values within our range of cells. So go ahead and complete that one off. Count for the rest of them. Hopefully no surprise there. It should be 5 for each of them, or however many bills you got. But could you imagine if you got a whole data set of data? I don't know how many records are in there, how many contain numeric values. Then I can use the count function to count how many numeric values fall within a range of cells. So try that one out, complete it for the rest of the months, and then let's jump into our next lectures. So let's pause for just a moment and kind of move away from using functions. I want to show something off here because it's a pretty common question that I get at this point within this Excel training. If you take a look at our spreadsheet, it's looking pretty good. We got a nice little spreadsheet there. We got some row labels with bills. We got some column headers up there, months and totals and percent. We got a nice row total there for each of our months. And we got some additional calculations here for min, max, average, and a count. I haven't completed my count yet. I'll do that in a moment. Now, if we look closely at some of these formulas, some of them have a little green triangle in the corner. See all those there? Now, what's that all about? This is a pretty common question that I get people asking. Well, what's happening here? If I click into one of those cells, I'm going to get a little box. It's a little diamond with an exclamation mark in there, and it looks like something's wrong, right? So you can look at that and be like, well, what's wrong? I mean, 1675, that sounds right. 1,000 plus 125 plus 150 plus 300 plus 100, that's 1675, right? Well, if I click that little box, this tells me that the formula omits adjacent cells. And I have the option to update the formula to include the cells, get help on the error, I can ignore it, and I got a few other options in there as well. Well, Excel is always trying to be helpful. It's a very smart application, but it doesn't have a lot of context built into it. It just sees numbers or text. It doesn't know that, oh, these numbers are bills, these values are text values for labels, these numbers are dates, they're different from currency amounts. It doesn't have that context. It just sees numbers and text. So here, we're using the sum function to sum up cells B4 to B8. That's great. That's what we want. But Excel, it sees the date up here at the top and it says, wait. That's a number too. We should be including that inside of this formula. So again, it's Excel trying to be helpful. If I go back out and I hit the little box and I say, okay, go ahead and update the formula. Whoa, what's that? 45,141? That's definitely not it. If I double click on that, B3 to B8. So now it's including that date cell. So again, I don't want that. Let's undo that. Control Z. So all I'm going to do here is say ignore the error. Or I could do this. I could select all these cells, go to the little diamond and say ignore the error. Gone. No longer there. I needed to do the same here. This one, it wants me to include the total as well and maybe the date as well. So I don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and highlight all those cells and I'll say ignore. Let's get rid of those little arrows. We don't need somebody looking at it and thinking, oh, there's something wrong with this worksheet. We've got all these errors all over the place. Well, they're not errors. It's just Excel trying to be helpful. Sometimes it's right? Oh, you missed a cell. Okay, great. I got to go back in and fix that. But in this case, we can ignore it. We don't need it. It's not helping us in any way. It's just Excel trying to be helpful and point us in the right direction. So go through, clean that up. If you're getting those little triangles, clean up those errors. Make sure Excel understands what we're trying to do here, and it's not looking at those dates anymore or the totals for us. Let's get that cleaned up. Then let's jump back into some more functions. At the beginning of this section, we started talking about functions in general, and then we got into the sum function. And I mentioned early on that we're going to start out by doing things the long way, right? First, we really started out by building a calculation that was like this cell plus this cell plus this cell and so on. And that was very time consuming and potentially full of errors if we accidentally missed a cell or included too many cells or mistyped something, right? So it was a very long and tedious process. Then we brought in the sum function that streamlined it, but we still went about it the long way. I went into a cell, I went to my formulas tab, I went into math and trig, then I went and found the sum function. It brought up the arguments window, we filled it in, I hit OK. We went through 6, 7, 8 steps in order to get that sum completed. Well, that's great, and we learned some key aspects along the way, but I want to streamline it even more. Now that we got a good understanding of functions, at least at the basic level, we can now start to use shortcuts. Let's take a look at a feature called Auto Sum. I want to automatically sum up a range of cells. One button press, done. And I'm going to give you a couple of ways to do this. So first, I know we just did a lot of work here to set this up and get all those formulas in, but I'm going to have you delete some of it. So I'm going to grab cells B9 to E9. I'm going to hold down my control key on my keyboard and I'm going to select E4 to E8. So that's your control key, and it allows you to select a group of non-contiguous cells, non-contiguous rows or columns of cells. That was my control key. I'm on a Windows machine. If I remember correctly, and I got to jog my memory because I don't work on a Mac all the time, but I believe you hold down the command key on the Mac to do that, to be able to select a non-contiguous group of cells. If that's not correct, jump into the comment section, let me know, and I can go and figure that out for us. I got a Mac sitting right next door to me, so I can jump over there and look as well. But I believe it's control on the Windows, and I believe it's command on the Mac. Either case, let's select them. Let's delete them out of there. Don't want them right now. We got some errors. That's all right. Those are going to come back. We talked about that earlier. So now I want to sum those back up. We saw the hardcore math approach, this plus this plus this plus this. We saw the function approach, which added a little more streamlined efforts, made it a little more efficient for us. Now let's see the auto sum. So I'm going to click into the B9 cell. I'm going to go to my formulas tab, and on the left, we have the auto sum. Now, if I just click on the big E button, the sigma symbol there, it'll do it for me. Look at that, B4 to B8. Didn't include the date. Great. I'm going to hit my enter key, and I'm done. I could even select a range of cells. Let's grab all 3 of those empty cells down there, and I can hit the auto sum button. Again, formulas, auto sum. Look at that, 1700, 1750. There's my 0. There's no cells right there. Let's just confirm this. C4 to C8 looks great. D4 to D8, great. And I'll double click E4 to E8. Look at that, auto sum does it all for me. I got those errors in there. That's all right. That's an adjacent cells. I'll just ignore that. I'm going to come over here. I'll use the auto sum. Now, this is one of the reasons why I like to start at the basics first. we're about to see something here that could potentially throw an error in your calculations, utilizing a more automated approach like the AutoSum. Take a look. I'm inside of E4. I want to get a total for rent across each of the months. Well, great. I'll go up to formulas, hit the AutoSum, and look at that. Sum B4 to D4, got all three of the values. Great, right? That's awesome. Hit my enter key, done. I'm going to go hit the AutoSum button again. Looking good. Got my B5 to D5, all three values for phone across each of the months. Now, Excel, it's a very smart, very intuitive application. But sometimes it tries to assume too much, or it relies on its default settings to accomplish a task for us. And we need to be aware of what these defaults are, especially when we're automating a process through a single button press. If I hit my enter key here, great, there's my 350. Now watch this one. How does Excel know which numbers we want? Well, it's based on the default behavior. I'm inside of E6, credit card for the 3 months. Formulas, AutoSum. What do you think? It did it. It did the sum equals sum E4 to E5. Well, that's not what I want. I want the credit card values. Right? I mean, come on, Excel. Don't you know what I'm doing here? Right? And again, it's a smart application, but it has some limitations and it has some defaults that are built into its behaviors. So this isn't a big deal as long as we're aware of it and we recognize that something went wrong. So all that we need to do is instead of E4 to E5 is I'll go click and drag the proper range of cells. Hit my enter key, done. Let's try it again. AutoSum, Excel, you got it wrong, not a problem. I'm just going to grab the correct range of cells. And let's do this one more time. Grab that, formulas, AutoSum, incorrect, grab the proper range, enter key, and I'm done. It's your AutoSum button. Complete them all, get it done, single button press, be able to sum up a range of cells. If it's wrong, not a big deal. Just go correct it, give it the correct range of cells, and you're done. So try this out. Go through, delete out the totals, and repopulate them. And just for kicks, if you want some more practice with that button, you can also delete all of the min, max, average, and counts out of there. Go up to the AutoSum button. It's actually got two pieces to it. If I click on the lower half, I've got average, the count function, which is count numbers, remember that one, and max and min in there, all through my AutoSum button. So try that one out, complete it. I know you've done it a couple times, but now you've got a nice little shortcut. All right, let's complete that, and then let's jump into the next lecture. Ooh, I forgot something in that last video. We were talking about the AutoSum. I gave you a couple ways to do it. You could do it on a single cell, hit the AutoSum button. You could select a range of cells and use the AutoSum. That takes us back to the discussion about relative references. Because these are all the same, it's always 5 cells up. It's going to do the exact same thing across each of the ranges. Even that empty one that I did. Remember that how this total here was empty to begin with? And I auto-summed it and it automatically grabbed the top 5 cells? Again, it's all based on that relative reference and using the first one as the example. I'm going to undo that. Now, the item that I forgot, and I love this one. I don't know how I left this one out, but here's its own little video, and we'll make this quick. This is the AutoSum shortcut key. You got a button there, but I love keyboard shortcuts, right? My hands are already on the keyboard. Why do I have to go to the mouse and go navigate the interface? Just use a shortcut key. Take a look at this. I'm going to delete out the total row. Gone. I'm going to click into B9. This is my total for January. Now to AutoSum that, I can use a keyboard shortcut. On my keyboard, I'm going to hold down the Alt key, Alt, and then the equals symbol, Alt equals. And that does the AutoSum for me. Alt equals. Hit my Enter key. I'll jump over to the next cell. Alt equals. Does it for me. Super slick, super fast, nice shortcut. Again, Alt equals on my keyboard. If I go to the Formulas tab and I hover my mouse over the AutoSum, it tells me, it says, hey, automatically add it up. Your total will appear after the selected cells. But here, it tells me the shortcut as well. Oops, let's get that back. I'm not going to be able to highlight it. It's right there at the top left corner of there. You can see sum, alt, plus the equal sign. That's it. That's your shortcut key. So try that one out. Get a little practice with it. Still summing, just another approach and a nice, quick, efficient way, nice shortcut to complete the auto sum on a range of cells. So I want to show off one more item here, and this is something that I use all the time when I'm dealing with calculations inside of Excel. And for that matter, there's other scenarios outside of calculations that I use this for as well. So it's a huge feature, one that I use all over my Excel documents. It's called autofill. Take a look. So we've been plugging in calculations, right? We got one calculation in there for January. We then move to February. We do that one. We go to March. We do that one. We go do the totals for each of the bills. We did min, max, and average. We did each of them individually. Well, there's a lot of similarities between each of our functions. For example, my first function here for January, it's a sum function, and it's summing up the 5 cells directly above it. The next one, it's the exact same formula, the exact same function. The only difference is it's in a new position, but I still want the 5 cells directly above it. And then the next one, it's in a new position, but it's still the 5 cells up above. Well, there should be a way to automate that. You guessed it, there is. And it's the autofill. Take a look. I'm going to go ahead and once again, all that work, I'm going to delete it out. Let's just get rid of our calculations. And you know what? Even for fun, I'm going to get rid of the percent as well. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create the first one, and I'm going to use the shortcut key. So here I am instead of B9. I'm going to hit Alt plus the equal sign, Alt equals. That sums it up. Let's just confirm. B4 to B8 looks good. Hit my enter key. There's my 1675. I don't care about that error. Let's go ahead and ignore that. All right, so now I need to populate the rest. Well, remember, all I need to do is this formula, I need to move it over here. And then I need to move it over here, and then over here. It's always the 5 cells up above. Well, earlier when we were doing the percent, I had you copy paste. You created the first one, copied it, pasted it, copied it, pasted it, and it ended up using that relative and absolute referencing that we talked about. Well, here, the autofill command, if I go to 1675, the autofill is this little box in the corner, this commonly overlooked feature, and it's huge. It's going to do so much for you and automate your steps. If I move my cursor right over the top of that little box, I get a little black plus sign. Now, if I click and hold down, I can drag that over all the way there, and it's just going to copy that formula for us. That's it. I'm going to hop up here, auto sum, B4 to D4, looks good. Enter, grab that one, grab the little box in the corner, and drag it down. And there's my totals. Super slick. It's like copy and paste, and it's just performing the exact same formula, just based on its new position. And it's really important that we understand the relative and absolute referencing. So if something's not quite clear there, remember that deals with, oh, from this location, I'm just going 5 cells up. Sum that up. From this location, go 5 cells up, right? Just based on its new position. If it's still not clear, again, go to the Q&A section or go back and rewatch the videos on absolute and relative referencing. It's really easy to do, and it's really short. Now, what I want you to do is complete that, use the autofill, populate those cells, get rid of those silly little errors, and then I want you to recreate the percent one. Recreate the first one, and then copy it down. Now, you're going to need to remember relative versus absolute, right? The first time you do it, you might get an error, but then just go back in and adjust the cell referencing. Remember the dollar signs. All right, complete that. Use the autofill to do the rest of them, and we'll call this one complete for right now, and we're going to move into our next set of topics. So hopefully you're enjoying this, you're learning something new. Even if you've been using Excel for years, hopefully you've picked up something new as we've been talking about functions inside of Excel.